critically acclaimed director, screenwriter, and producer, Christopher Nolan.
Welcome to the first episode of Sharpscoper. Bear in mind, there are spoilers ahead for the films Inception, Interstellar, and Dunkirk. The idea behind this video occurred to me when I was first watching Dunkirk. One of the obvious strengths for Nolan as a director is his emphasis on cinematography and the realistic capturing of the three-dimensional world. But why am I case studying these three very different films? It's because there are great examples of how Nolan builds up the story for his films on the foundation of an extra dimension, and that is time.
Space beyond our three dimensions.
Timeline is perhaps one of the most important attributes of a story. Nolan is very much familiar with utilizing time to add complexity and depth to his films. Perhaps Dunkirk is a good starter as it has a much simpler concept than the other two films. The story surrounds the efforts for evacuating some of the many stranded Allied soldiers from the beach of Dunkirk in north of France. The film consists of three stories with three different timelines. The mold captures the events that the stranded soldiers are going through during the final week of the evacuation mission. The sea is the story of the evacuation efforts on the waterfront that lasts a day. And the air is the story of the Royal Air Force pilots and the battle that lasts for an hour. Although these timelines differ in length, they are navigated linearly with the same time dilation factor. In other words, they are just snapshots of the same wider story. What's really interesting here is how Nolan uses this technique to emphasize on the hardship that the soldiers are going through as they are on the lengthier timeline. Moving on to Inception, the concept is much more complicated. Cobb and his team are experts in psychological manipulation of subconscious through the medium of dreams. They often extract information from the victim in their dream, however this time they want to plant an idea deep within their victim, Robert Fisher's subconscious. To do this, they place the victim in a multi-layered dream structure. Dreams occur when we are in a state called rapid eye movement or REM sleep. An average human only has 25% of their total sleeping time in this state. But you may have noticed that this time seems to be a lot longer than 90 minutes of our daily REM sleep.
Why don't you give us another 5 minutes?
5 minutes? What? We were talking for like at least an hour.
In a dream, your mind functions more quickly, therefore, time seems to feel more slow.
Accordingly, in the storyline of Inception, adding an extra layer has an exponential effect on the timescale of that dream. The deeper the dream goes, the length of the timeline multiplies by the factor of 20. During the main act, the story divides itself into 5 non-linear but parallel timelines, meaning that everything is happening at the same time. For example, when the characters are at the hotel, their physical world is affected by the way Yusuf is driving the van in a dream level above. Nolan finds a very intuitive way of connecting the many dots he created. In order to merge these timelines, he uses the tangible real-life techniques, a synchronizing music and a waking kick. This way, characters can roll back into the dream level above. When they hear the music, they know they only have a certain amount of time left in that dream level, and they need to initiate a kick for themselves and others around them to wake up. Moving on to the next film, Interstellar is themed around saving humanity from an increasingly uninhabitable Earth. In Interstellar, Nolan would not be able to take the full credit of the story complexity himself. A lot of the concept seen in the film is owed to the scientific discoveries in physics. However, the story has fictional elements that makes digesting this incredibly complicated film a lot more difficult. One of the key differences between managing a multi-layered timelines in Interstellar and Inception is that exploring different places in Interstellar comes at a hefty cost of losing time relevant to Earth, whereas in Inception the characters were just asleep and they would not age in reality. For example, during the few hours that Cooper and the team visited Miller's world, time relevant to Earth and Romilly, who stayed on board of the mothership Endurance, lasted 23 years. The next timeline misalignment occurs when Cooper spends several minutes somewhere in between the event horizon and the point of singularity in the black hole called Gargantua. The time dilation factor is so significant that several minutes here last about 68 years on Earth. If by this point you weren't confused enough, Nolan would throw the fifth dimension at you to make things even more complicated. The three-dimensional world, plus time, plus gravity, forms the environment that Cooper can send a coded message to Murph. The overall concept of Interstellar is so complicated that even this brilliant illustration from the Reddit user Stoifix42 does not overly simplify it. Another thing common between these three films is how the story involves situations where there need to be some sort of training involved for the more amateur characters. For Dunkirk is the character George. The dialogue between Mr. Dawson and him walks the audience through the relevant events during the Dunkirk rescue mission. For Inception, Ariadne, the team's new architect, goes through extensive training. In Interstellar, the conversation between Cooper and her young daughter Murph breaks down the current situation Earth is going through at the time. In addition to using character training in both Inception and Interstellar, specialized roles within the teams formulate detailed conversation where the complex ideas are broken down from the scope of different experts. Nolan's contribution to the film industry is magnified by the way he handles the stories, as explained earlier. He's a magnificent artist and a brilliant creator.
Thank you for watching the first episode of Sharpscoper. If you like this video, please hit the like button below and consider subscribing to this channel.